program is about consciousness, who we are, why we're here, where we're going, what we're here to do. Those are the questions that I like to ask and find the answers to, and that's one of the reasons I do this program, because we're in this evolutionary process and things are changing and more of who we are is unfolding. So those answers that may have existed in the past are also changing as we're evolving. And that's why I have Nancy Canning here on another show to talk about our soul's purpose, our soul's calling. And do you feel like the incarnational experience is changing somehow with this evolution?
Yeah. It's speeding up. People feel like it's speeding up. When we were younger, back in the 1980s, perhaps.
Okay.
That was a long time ago for many people.
Okay, it feels like yesterday.
It feels like yesterday. There was no talk of past lives. There wasn't talk about angels. Angels weren't on Time magazine. There was no mediumship out there. None of that existed.
In the mainstream world.
Mainstream world. But in the course of like 30, 40 years, which is nothing, it is absolutely gone mainstream. So everything is speeding up. The awareness and consciousness is becoming more, the whole world is able to access it now through the internet. So
So people's beliefs are changing, what they're available to, and of course your work is so important at that point, because people then have questions about their past lives and their soul's purpose. Will call you.
Yes, that's the plan. And also they do that whole level of that whole search is becoming so much more. See, in the old days that was in tribal communities, this was all just given. It was all just what people did. But then the civilized countries came along and lost touch with that connection with source, with connection with the earth, connection with who they are. And so we're refining it now. In a civilized, so to speak, society, we're learning how do we do that type of spiritual life in a society that doesn't foster it.
Right, it doesn't foster it, but and that's why I do this
That's
television.
why you do this, yes.
So we can create a spiritual context within the world that then people can relate to.
Yeah, and so it's helping it to grow. So it's all speeding up. It's evolving, I think, very quickly, and there is a shift in consciousness happening.
Well, I think the shift in consciousness is about when people understand that they have a soul and they've come in on a soul level. This life can be lived differently, right? And how do you see that happening?
I see that happening because when I know that I have come to do certain work, I'm going to do it. Because I also know people used to think, oh, if you think you're coming back again, you can just goof off. It's like, well, yeah, you can goof off, but you're coming back and you'll just have to repeat.
Right, like Groundhog's Day.
Groundhog's, I love that movie.
That's my favorite
we all
movie
love
too.
Groundhog's Day.
Yeah, that was the
the epitome of how we do it. Because guess what? We do that, and every lifetime we learn a little bit more. And a little bit more, and we forget a lot. Like he forgot over and over and over. We forget more than we remember. And then we start to remember more and more. And that's why I think there's so many children coming in nowadays, these 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds with extraordinary abilities.
Yeah, and they're old souls.
They're old souls.
They do remember.
And they remembered. The ones who are singing, you know, they come in and they sing opera at 9.
Right.
They remembered their skills. So
and they're still in touch with their soul's purpose.
Yeah.
You know, one of the questions that I had after the last show was like, why do people fear death if they know that they're this eternal essence? And you said because the body fears.
The fear is only on the body level.
But
not the soul
don't they
level.
remember that on a soul level?
When they do remember it, then they don't fear it anymore. So I've had people come to me and do a past life regression because they're afraid of death. So I take them through the life, I take them through the death. The minute they're out of the body, they feel that, they remember it. And I remember this one teenager wrote me back and said, there's no more fear. I got it. I remembered.
But I still think that life is so amazing.
Yes.
And I think it's because I remember my past life and how painful that was, and that, wow, to have this opportunity and to be part of this creation is a miraculous thing.
Yeah.
Just think how miraculous it is, because we are energy, basically, and to be embodied.
Yeah, it's amazing. When you stop and think about how come we're here and what's it really all about, it's
Yes.
amazing.
You know,
So-
one of my favorite quotes is by Edgar Cayce. You know who he is?
Yeah.
And he said that people always worry about how much do they survive after the death of the body. He said the bigger question is, how much does that infinite consciousness survive the life of the body? Like, how much can we expand in
the body? Yes.
Yes, that's the bigger question.
Focus
here.
on here. How am I doing? What am I here to do? Who am I? And I think the way that we find that really is we go into our heart. We go, what do I love?
Well, how does your work help them find that?
If I do past lives, I take you back to a past life having a significant impact on this current life, because we do repeat lessons. So when we shine a light on another life, it helps us to see this life in a different way. And it's very healing, not just for traumas, but just for everyday, who am I? And how am I living this life? And it answers questions that we didn't even know we had.
Like what?
So the other day it was working with a person, and it was a whole sense of, oh, I can be at peace no matter what's going on in the world. I can love my life even when it's not perfect. And this was something that this person had done before, and it was shining a light and realizing that's a quality that's really important to that person.
To love
To love their life, even when conditions aren't perfect.
Right.
And to know that that's a quality that they've had before, and there was a sweetness to it.
A sweetness to loving life, even though it's not perfect.
Yes, and to acknowledging, oh, that's who I am. That's a skill I have. Not everyone loves life. When life is difficult,
yes,
it's
love
huge. Life.
I like that.
To
I
love
haven't thought
life.
of it because
Yes.
I do. I really do. And do you?
Yes. Most of the time, you know,
what's
we
been
slip.
in the way of you loving it?
Well,
loving life?
sometimes I get caught up and it's not the way it's supposed to be. I want it to be different. I want it to be better.
And how do you get over that?
Take a breath. You take a breath and come back to, this is what I've created. What do I want? What would I love? What can I do? And is it okay the way it is? Can I come? I lived 3 years learning the lesson of how do I accept the unacceptable. And I did that by living in a little tiny, like 300 square foot room. Now, I almost had my doctorate in psychology. I had 19 years of education, so you can imagine the story in my head of like going, this is all I can do. This is all I can do.
Why did you do that to yourself?
That was all I could find at the time. And it became a learning. Once I got the learning, after I quit, I thought I'd only be there 3 months instead of 3 years.
And the learning was what?
How do I accept the unacceptable?
The unacceptable was living in a small place.
And having people come there and do sessions out of that, and they're going, oh, well, where do you live? And I said, here, and seeing the looks on their faces. It was a huge learning.
What did that make you feel like? When they
Terrible, like less than.
Less than? And how did you deal with that?
So I had to notice that I was feeling less than. So I noticed what I was noticing. And then I came to terms with said, oh, I'm learning how to accept the unacceptable. What an incredible learning. And I started to embrace it and started to learn, how do I love where I live? How do I love myself as I am? These conditions, this room, has nothing to do with who I am.
And then you were able to get out of that place.
Yeah, once I loved it and I was totally at peace, I moved on.
Oh, so that
But it took me 3 years.
Well, at least you got it. Some
I
people
got
are, I'm still in my place after, well, I won't even talk about that.
But this was strictly a learning for me. It had nothing to do,
Right.
it was just the universe providing me with an environment. It had nothing to do with the space. It was just a learning.
So let's go back and talk about belief systems, because you say people have these ideas about themselves. Like someone else might say, well, they don't deserve anything more, and they'd be stuck in that.
Yeah.
How do you get them beyond that? How does your work deal with overcoming belief systems?
So we go back to the root cause of where you first learned you don't deserve. And it's usually before 5, 6 years of age.
Something happened in your life.
Some little thing happens. It doesn't have to be traumatic, but it's big in the mind of the child.
Okay.
So I was working with a client last week who has trouble now doing work. self-employed, and every time sits down to do the business levels of work, just hates it, would rather go do anything else. Let me go do housework, let me go do anything.
Right.
Goes back to being 9 years old, having to do homework. Oh, I don't want to do homework, I want to go play. You know, what's really normal for a
Actually, sounds like
9-year-old.
is that my situation?
But so what's really normal for the 9-year-old got locked in. It literally froze
So
in
how
time.
did you free that person?
So we go back, and when you go back and re-experience it and talk to that part that still thinks she's 9. So every time she sits down to do work, it's that gets replayed in her
Yes,
brain.
that 9-year-old.
The 9-year-old who doesn't want to do
So
homework.
how'd you get that person through
By
it?
bringing that into present consciousness. So
By
I
bringing
talk to the
what?
part. I talk to the part and tell
The
them,
9-year-old part that doesn't want to do the homework.
and still thinks she's 9.
All right.
That's the whole trick with
So
the
the-
hypnosis. That part still thinks she's 9.
So that person still, a part of that person still thinks they're 9 years old.
Yes, and hating homework.
And every time there's homework, they just, that
Oh,
9-year-old becomes
anything.
that.
Oh.
And then you get through that by,
Talking right to that aspect of
and
them.
that 9-year-old says, no, I don't want to do homework.
Yes,
It's not fun.
and then I go, you're still 9. She's still 9 for you. Yes, I said, so take a breath and come into present time.
Come into present time where you're
And
not
bring
9.
and look and see, they're not 9.
They're not.
They're not 9.
They're not
and
9.
This isn't homework, and this is no longer the truth. And there's a shift in consciousness that can happen. You can feel that shift that says, oh, and it can unlock it.
I think in my session we were working on something else, but you said to like a part of me that it doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
A part that was resistant or didn't feel worthy or yeah.
It's a lie. I call it a lie because when it got formed,
Yes.
it never was the truth that you weren't worthy. You felt not worthy as a child. We make up all these stories about why we're not worthy, we're not good enough.
But in this person's case with the homework, it was true that the homework wasn't fun, that they didn't want to do it. That was true.
That was true. But that thought was never meant to then generalize to the entire rest of this person's life. It was only true for the 9-year-old right then.
So you say
It got stuck, like a picture gets taken and never changes. So it's talking to it and going, she's not 9.
you're not 9 anymore. Grow up.
Well, it's pretty much that. It's grow up. And in talking right to that part in the subconscious mind, in hypnosis and bringing it into present time, there's a release that happens. There's a recognition, not the logical mind so much,
Right.
but the subconscious mind where it can let go and
people,
go.
I bet, cry and have deep feelings.
There can be deep emotions,
It
but
was
there's a
deep for me,
relief.
yeah.
There's also a lightness that comes when it releases.
Yeah, I think, these are really life-changing experiences. I know for me is like we're working on self-worth or something
Yeah.
and having, and it's like, wow, I don't need to hold on to those old childhood experiences
No.
that aren't real now.
No, they were true then.
And it seems silly to even have
Yes,
thought they
I
would
know,
be
I know.
real.
It's
I guess that means I'm
so
over it, right?
Phenomenal, yes, because when it's in you and I'm talking to you, you would swear it's true. You know it's true. You will defend it. And yet when it releases, all of a sudden it's like, oh,
That was just
that was
ridiculous.
silly. What was that about? We can't imagine why we held on to it. When it's released, you can't even begin to bring back because it's like saying you're still 9. You're no longer held captive.
But if you look at it all on the soul level, so
Yes.
the soul level created that 9-year-old experience.
Yes.
And also the soul level created the experience of holding on to it, because you're saying on the soul level we create everything.
Yeah.
Now, why would the soul create something to hold on to?
So that we can learn.
Okay.
So here's what happens on a
Yes,
on the big picture.
Let's give us the big picture.
Here's the big overview.
Okay.
So we decide what life lessons we want on a soul level
Before we come
in. We're in the spirit world. We know what we want to work on. So we pick the family. We pick the parents, the family, the circumstances, and the lessons. We don't pick every event. That's not ours to pick. But we know what we want to learn.
Okay.
And then people, when I gave a talk on this a few months ago, a lecture on past lives at an expo, and there was a real ripple when I said we pick our parents. And the thing is, if you want to learn love, you're not going to come into a loving family.
You're not.
Because where's the learning? You experience love, but that's not learning.
But most people then react to the lack of love
Yes.
instead of learning the
Yes.
lesson. So
Yes.
but for the very purpose they're coming in for is not happening.
Oh, it's perfect.
Okay.
No, they come in and they form all these beliefs that limit them about I'm unlovable, I'm not worthy of love.
Especially if their family's
nobody
not giving them love.
cares, I'm on my own. So these form early on. And then they believe them and they start to live them out, and that gets reinforced. And then somewhere in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whenever, they start to challenge those thoughts because their soul is going
Well,
all
they have
the time.
to meet you, though.
Well,
That's
no,
the thing.
there's lots of people doing this work.
Okay,
So
so
thank
they-
you. I'm not the only one.
But no.
But they begin to, because remember, on a soul level, yes, they know they've come in to learn love, so there will be urgings, there will be intuitions, there will be circumstances that gives them opportunity to challenge those false beliefs and come into the truth of love, so that they learn it.
The opportunities will
Yes,
arrive. Because
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's a part of, they will absolutely be given the opportunity to learn love, but they'll be challenged because their beliefs will say, but I'm not worthy.
Right.
But something deeper is saying, but yes, I want that.
Okay.
And that is called human. That's the whole
So when
play.
they really get like overcoming like the lack of love
Yes.
they felt from their family,
Yes.
they really get what it's like to feel love.
Yeah.
That's like because they
That's
and they
what
wouldn't
they-
have gotten it any
Yeah.
other way.
Then they know they have experienced and learned love, and they can be.
Why does it have to be so hard? I mean, that
Part
is
of it is-
hard to come into like lack of love and to
But
learn
there's
love.
blessings. Here's the other thing: is
Okay.
as much as it was difficult, there is a balance of the blessings.
There is.
Yes. There's a real
For all those
balance.
people suffering.
Everything
Yes.
is balanced in our lives, so that that way of feeling loved could make this person very compassionate. Some of their greatest qualities would come from the difficult upbringing.
But some people never get over and they just get mean or feel
Yes,
in
they
love
do.
or they become
They be-
homeless
yes.
or they come
Yeah.
whatever.
And at the end of that life, they get to see that and go, oh, wow, I had a chance for love and I didn't take it. It's okay. I mean,
They'll
on
have
a human
another
level, that may seem really
Right.
not very kind, but on a soul level,
On a soul level.
we all are being given choices, and everyone knows it. Anyone who has
We're being choices to learn what we
Yes.
decide to learn or continue the
yes,
pattern.
Yes. And
That's big though.
but we all have intuition.
Yes.
We all are being urged and nudged.
But sometimes we don't even know it's a pattern until we.
But it gets so difficult that we finally wake up,
Right.
or not.
Or not.
Or
But
not.
at some point, but it is dangerous, I think, or some people would think, that you are responsible for everything that happens.
You're responsible for how you respond to everything that happens.
Right.
You're not responsible for
Right, everything, every
everything.
little thing.
No,
Right.
I got rear-ended. My car got
You weren't
rear-ended a month ago.
responsible. It was always the other person's fault.
Well, this one, but I am responsible for how I respond and what do I make it mean, and how do I then go forward with that. That's mine.
But going back to the starving children in Africa,
Which is where everyone goes.
I know, you would say those children are somehow chosen that life experience. That would be a hard one for other people to accept. How?
But what if someone wants to, an old soul wants to come in and help with compassion in the world? So they will come in to a circumstance that will draw out compassion. If they've said, I want to be of service. So here comes someone who wants to be one of the workers in the aids who goes over and helps. They need someone to help.
Well, the other part about that is that some people think by judging someone's outside, they have a hard, difficult life. But
We
you
don't
look
know.
We don't know because you look at someone like Robin Williams, right? Had
yeah.
everything, fame, money, you know, everyone loved him, and still was not happy.
Yeah, yeah.
So by looking at someone, we can't judge what their soul is here to do or
No.
understand or be or who they are.
You can't judge by their jobs or even
the
the
circumstances
choices
of their lives.
One of the past lives that fits in with belief systems that was most profound for me was
Yeah.
many years ago. The woman in a past life had a little girl who died young. The daughter died at like 2 or 3, and the mother went into absolute despair, depression, hopelessness, and committed suicide.
Wow.
Got out of the body at the death in the past life and went, uh-oh.
Shouldn't have done
Oh dear. And then it was a life between lives. So we go on into the spirit world, and she was afraid of what was going to be the circumstances because of what she had done.
Because of the suicide.
Because of the suicide.
And then what happened?
It was one of her finest lives. They were so proud of her because on a soul level, her soul essence is to hold hope. Right. She emanates hope. And so
in this life,
as a soul,
as a soul,
her soul essence is to emanate hope. And
even
in
though
between
she committed
lives,
suicide?
In between lives, she's grouped with others, and they literally radiate hope. So they were proud of her because she was willing to go so against her soul essence to experience hopelessness, so that she could better heal.
But. Yeah, I mean, I just don't think there's ever a reason to commit suicide,
well,
right?
But I'm not saying good or bad, but
Right.
I'm saying for her,
Right.
it was, for her, part of her soul's journey. That's where I learned not to judge.
So there's no mistakes, you're saying?
There's mistakes, but there's no judgment.
No judgment.
There's people who commit suicide, they get out, and they go, uh-oh.
Shouldn't have done that.
I've done that in past lives. Hers was... It was what she needed to do to really experience.
I guess people, maybe I have a judgment about that, and other people do.
Yeah,
and I'm saying,
yeah.
So on a soul level, everything's okay.
On a soul level, there's only love. On a human level, we're doing our best, and we're making mistakes, and we're picking ourselves up, and we're going on, and we fall down, and we get up again.
But I also think on the human level, there's something really special, not just about being embodied, but not just about this time, but something connected to the soul level that we're supposed to do here. Right?
Many times, but it's not always a doing, it's a being. It's how are we to be? So for the life purpose, many times people want to know, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, what if it's what am I supposed to be? What if you've come in to be kind? And that your act of service, the greatest gift you can give, is to be kind.
Not doing anything but being.
But that's a lot of doing. That means when you're in line and it's slow and you're still kind. And when you're in a traffic jam, you're still kind. You emanate kindness. It's not an easy when you're with someone who's really a jerk.
Right.
And
you'll be tested.
Yeah, you will be tested. You will bring unkind people into your life.
If that's your lesson. I'm glad that's not my lesson.
But it's a way of being. And so it can be that what you're supposed to be is simply a voice for truth.
Right.
So you have to start saying, well, what is my truth? And starting to tell the truth when you would rather tell a lie. And I mean, it can be, all the life purposes can be so simple and yet profound. It's a way of being.
Getting back to reincarnation, life between life, how do you know when you're regressing people that's true? And it's not a fabrication of a story. I mean, how do you know?
So one of the ways is there's a real felt knowing. You just know.
And you feel something. In my experience, it's like I'm really... Why am I so sad about that?
Yeah.
It's like,
you
wouldn't be sad about a story you're making up, or angry or upset.
Exactly. So there's emotions, there's a whole sense, you can feel it. Many times in the past life you can feel old and done. You feel old and done.
But the mind could still be making that up.
But if you were making it up, you would be working it with your mind to really feel it. You would be making it happen in your body. This is spontaneous.
So what's the most amazing experience you've seen in your regressions? What really stands out?
Stands out with that one with the woman who did suicide. I can't tell you how profound that was, to learn not to judge anyone.
Because you were judging that too.
Yeah, and that was one of the ahas of don't judge. And another one where I learned not to judge, so obviously I have some judgment stuff, is someone who actually was his last life, and he, one of the very, very few, had lost 28 jobs in this lifetime. And he wanted to know why. He knew he was a capable soul.
Did he feel like a failure?
Yes. He was going around saying goodbye to everyone.
Because it was his last life?
It was his last life. And in his previous life to this one, he was a street sweeper in New York City. So just because Someone can be an old soul and have a job that you would not deem old soulish.
How'd you know it was his last lifetime?
It all felt right in the spirit world. It was one of the few where it really did.
Because I would think someone who's was having a last lifetime would really be at peace with everything in their life. Like there wouldn't be any issues. They'd be able to look at everyone and have compassion.
Yeah.
And that's
Yep.
so maybe
Could
that
be.
person was like that.
Yep. And it may be that they still come back again once in a while, because I've worked with people who do come back for refresher courses, so to
Really?
speak. They're of service in the spirit world. They're often teachers. They're teaching young souls how to be. And if you've been away a long time, whatever that means in soul talk, you forget. And so you come back into a life and tend to have a really difficult one. These old souls tend to have they take on way too much because they think that they can handle anything.
Or some souls, though, have the old souls have beautiful lives because they're at peace with everything, and they're there as an example of it.
Absolutely. So as far as are we making it all up? On one level, absolutely, we're making it all up. So make it up good. On another level, there's a deep reality and a consciousness to it.
And a feeling to
And there's
it.
a real deep feeling, and there is, at the bottom of it all, love. It's all about love.
Wow, I feel that, Nancy.
Yes,
Thank you for your work.
Thank you for what you do. You're doing good work for this universe.
I'm doing what
You're doing what you've come to do.
Well, what I love to do. You know, if
and
other people
yeah.
get something from it,
Great.
I'm happy.
That's how you know you're on your life purpose.
Yes.
Good job.
Well,
for both of us.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody here. And thanks for watching. I'm Alan Steinfeld. If you want to reach me, go to my website, Newrealities.com. And your website is?
NancyCanning.com.
And you can buy her 2 beautiful books, Your Life's Calling and Your Soul's Calling, where people can really learn for themselves instead of working with you.
Yeah.
But Nancy also does sessions, and how can they get in touch with you?
NancyCanning.com.
And they can book a session.
Yep, the email is there.
And they go do a past life. And what's beautiful is that you're learning. It's not like, oh, you've had these experiences. You're actually learning about yourself. And you can find your soul's calling, your life's calling, your purpose, and your limiting beliefs.
And I do a lot over phone and Skype. So the world is open now.
Skype. Go to Skype. Yes, I did a great Skype session. And that was really transformational.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm so glad.
Yeah, thanks for coming down to the studio.
Thank you.
From Cape Cod.
Cape Cod.
Okay. Thanks for watching. See you later.